Now at noon, Inauguration Day ceremonies continue after President Joe Biden swearing in as the 46th President of the United States. Joining us live now via Zoom, our political analyst, Matt Klink, and Cal State Fullerton Political Science Associate Professor, Dr. Sarah Hill. Doctor, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on today's inauguration and the new president's speech?
Well, actually, I've been surprised how normal it's felt. After everything that we've been through, you could see that there was a great deal of effort made to follow ceremony as much as possible, to follow our norms and traditions. And absolutely, there was an emphasis on unity. That was what we expected. And that was absolutely what we heard from President Biden, that he wants to be the president for all Americans. And that was shown in many different ways. So I think we're seeing an attempt to go back to what would be considered more of our norms and how we would normally expect a transition of power to go.
Matt Klink, your turn. Good to see you, by the way. Let's talk about it. What did you think about today's ceremony?
I think it really highlighted, as Sarah pointed out, one, Joe Biden's call for unity, of bringing both Republicans and Democrats together to end the caustic rhetoric. But the thing that was overriding on all of it for me was the durability and the strength of America's system. You did see a normal transition of power that was peacefully accomplished. You saw members of both parties in the Capitol Rotunda offering gifts to Joe Biden, celebrating he and Kamala Harris's great achievement. It was just it's very emotional whenever you see these, and I've watched them now for some time. The transition of power and Joe Biden's opportunity to really move this country forward after really a difficult 4 years.
It's also that true tradition that we saw today. A lot of times we've seen so many inaugurations, but I personally have not really noticed it as much this time, like as Matt mentioned there. You know, also Biden plans to hit the ground running by signing several executive actions later today. A couple of them ending further funding on the wall at the Mexico border, and also that mask mandate at federal buildings for the first 100 days. Sarah, would you like to speak to that?
It's very interesting. He is definitely showing that he, like you said, is hitting the ground running. He wants to get down to business. I think that President Biden knows that after months of chaos and pain and everything that this country has been through, we need to see that the government is now back to business and is back to doing what we would normally expect the federal government to be doing. That he's going to be working on this problem. He's going to be working with the states. He's going to be working on getting money to solve these problems. So he's trying to show that the federal government is back to business as we would expect it and just jumping right in. And I think that's a good strategy. That's what's needed to get busy, to get the vaccines out as quickly as possible. He's showing us that he's taking this very seriously, and he's going to take a lot of action very quickly.
Matt, on that same subject of executive orders, 4 years ago, President Trump came in, signed executive orders, overturning executive orders by his predecessor, President Obama. There was a lot of legal challenges to that. Do you see the same thing happening today?
I don't necessarily know about the legal challenges, Glenn. I'm sure that once the text of them is revealed, that the attorneys will go to work. But the weakness of executive order is that the person who follows you can easily undo them. I mean, Barack Obama saw that when Donald Trump undid a lot of his executive orders, and now Joe Biden is showing that to Donald Trump's executive orders. The real lasting achievements are done when you run things through Congress, and that has proven to be difficult on major pieces of legislation for both parties. And I think that the clarion call today from Joe Biden was for Congress to work with the president to get things done for the American people. That's an easy statement to make. The challenge will be in a very closely divided House and a tie in the Senate, for all intents and purposes, can that be accomplished?
Matt, on that note as well, President Biden has been in D.C. and served public life for many decades, and he knows what to expect in the first 100 days. One of the things he's pushing for is to get 100 million shots into the arms of Americans. What else can we expect from him the first 100 days?
Well, that number of 100 million vaccines, every single American, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, or a declined to stater, you should want that to happen. The country will be better and will return to normal more quickly. Joe Biden has promised that he's going to pursue immigration reform. That's a very thorny issue. Typically, there are two sides of it. One is some type of amnesty or path to citizenship for approximately 11 million people who are undocumented but in this country. There's also the security aspect. Joe Biden appears to have focused on the amnesty and citizenship portion, but really ignored the security part of it. And that will really then head into the Senate and to the House, where hopefully compromise can be struck and something can be done on the matter of immigration. But he will pursue other agendas. He'll use reconciliation to pass a budget and some stimulus, likely with some tax increases. He has a long list of things that he wants to do, some of which were overwhelmingly popular, and some of which will head straight into that partisan divide that existed before him and still exists with him taking presidency today.
All right. President Trump, of course, and his family left the nation's capital 8 o'clock this morning, D.C. time. By the time the inauguration was taking place, he was already at Mar-a-Lago with his family. Professor, what's your take on his final remarks at Joint Andrews before taking off?
It was actually, for President Trump, I was surprised how calm it was, how he was a little bit quieter, a little bit humbled, maybe for him. That's not something we see a lot, but still saying we'll be back somehow. And so he still is trying to figure out how to be in the game, what that's going to look like. So I don't expect him to go away completely. I think he knows that this is a time to be a little bit quiet, that we don't know yet what's going to come out now that he's left the White House, that there could be a lot of information that comes out now about his administration. So it's a time to perhaps be a little bit quiet, but he's not planning to go away entirely. So it's going to be, we're very interested to see how this plays out. What do we learn about his administration, and how does he try to stay a player in this game of politics when things are not looking good for him right now?
Well, Trump, interestingly, as he left the White House, then in stark contrast with Biden on the stage talking about taking a measure of me and my heart, saying to essentially Trump's followers, give me a second, give me a minute. Listen to me, watch me, and if you don't agree with me, if you don't jump on board, if you don't understand the measure of me and my heart, I get that. That's democracy. But at least for a moment, let's get quiet and give me a chance. Your thoughts on that?
I thought that was exactly the message that we needed to hear from President Biden. He knows that he is walking into an incredibly difficult situation, and that he has a very hard task ahead of him with the pandemic, economic crisis, all of these issues. And so he's asking people to keep an open mind, because he knows that the country is very divided. And I think that it was a point well made that it's okay in a democracy to disagree, that's okay. We vote, we see who wins, and we move forward from there, and we come back again in 4 years and we fight it out again. That's not what we would hear in general from the Trump administration, that it is okay to disagree, that's what happens in a democracy. And so he's trying to strike this new tone to help, again, with that unity. That's his theme, that when we disagree, it doesn't have to be a war. We're not out to get each other. It's just that sometimes well-meaning people disagree. And so he was really trying to thread that needle, that he knows is really tricky, but hopefully if he could get a few more folks to listen to that message and to be okay with disagreeing, that it would make it easier for him during his administration.
Speaking of threading the needle, Matt, you're a political strategist, primarily for the GOP. President Trump did bring a lot of people into the Republican Party. A lot of them are very upset right now. How does the Republican Party keep these people to support them at this point?
Look, Glenn, that's a great question. Donald Trump increased his vote total from 2016 to 2020 by almost 10 million voters. So there's 74 million plus Americans voted for him. So what the challenge you're seeing right now and what you'll see the next 2 years internally while the partisan debate goes on in Washington, D.C., you're going to see a battle for the heart and soul of the Republican Party. And the question is what does the party want to become? Does it maintain the conservative populist element that Donald Trump, he didn't start that, but he certainly capitalized on it? Or do you see a return to more traditional Republican values? If I had to bet money, it's going to be a hybrid. It'll be a little bit of both, but I think that what you will see is a concerted effort to focus on debate and discussion and not to get personal and ugly. That has really been a hallmark of the last 4 years. Again, Donald Trump didn't start that total war philosophy, but he certainly expanded it and carried it on to the nth degree. I think you're going to see more deliberate debate and discussion, which can only augur well for both sides, both Republicans and Democrats, and for the struggle for the soul of the Republican Party.
Going back to this morning, both of you guys, Eugene Goodman, seeing him come down the steps, the Capitol police officer who distracted those rioters from lawmakers that day. He's been promoted. He's an American hero. He's a former vet. Your thoughts on that? Because what a beautiful moment, not only for law enforcement, but also for an individual who probably, what are the chances, did he think 2 weeks ago, that he would be being honored on the steps of the Capitol?
There were so many moving moments this morning, and he was absolutely one of them. And it highlighted, again, the message, I think, that so many tried to send in the inauguration today, in the ceremony, that this is about preserving democracy. And that's what he stood for. He stood for preserving democracy. He was trying to preserve all of the senators, to preserve Congress. And that's what this is about, is that we have our debates, we vote, and then that's who leads us. And we go forward from there. And again, we come back in a few years and we vote again. But what we can all agree on is that we need to protect that fragile democracy. And he heroically stood for that. And so it was wonderful that he could be honored in that way today. I know just so many people found so many parts of that moving, that was a theme of that everyone agreed on, is the importance of preserving our democracy and our elected leaders.
Well, and actually the images we're seeing now on the screen, we don't have the crowds, but they are having the typical motorcade joining the parade, and at some point the Bidens and the Harrises will emerge from the vehicles and walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. So, not the usual inauguration day, but at least we are seeing these images. How important is that?
No, very much so. I mean, from everything with the Secret Service agents walking alongside a limousine, that is probably the most secure vehicle in the entire world. But then you will see both the president and the first lady and the vice president and the first gentleman get out. And if there were crowds, that was typically done to demonstrate that they were of the people, that they could mix and mingle. It is also to demonstrate vitality, but I think that it's nice to see the president and the vice president literally walking on the streets that everyday Americans under normal circumstances would walk along. And it signifies the touch with the common man and woman that has been a hallmark of American democracy. So it is very symbolic. Even without the people, it's a very moving scene.
It's so interesting to think 4 years forward, whoever is elected, the difference, right? And the difference from 4 years past. And mainly this is not just because of what happened 2 weeks ago. This is because of the pandemic, primarily for the protection of Americans. So a lot of people are at home right now watching this peaceful transition, a new day for America as President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris elected to lead us here in the United States. People from all over the world watching. Beautiful day in Washington, D.C. as well. So fascinating to, as Matt mentioned too, to eventually be able to see them walking the streets, and eventually we'll see President Joe Biden, which is a tradition as well, with a military escort walking literally right up to the White House, where he will live for the next 4 years.
Professor, looking at the new administration's agenda for the next 100 days, what do you see being the easiest legislation to get through and the toughest?
Oh, good heavens, what will be easy? I don't know if anything will be easy. I think most of his nominees will be confirmed and those sorts of things. That's not legislation. But as Matt pointed out, I think the biggest hurdle is going to be the Senate. The House is very close, but Democrats do have control. The Senate with the 50-50 split and Vice President Harris as the tiebreaker, I think Mitch McConnell is still going to do whatever he can to hold things up. And I think it's still going to be a challenge. So I don't know if I could say one piece that's going to be easy to get through. I'm thinking about things. I know President Biden's priorities are working on climate change. I would expect controversy there. The parties are still very divided on so many of these policy issues. And what I would suggest is if he is at all able to find a few Republicans willing to work with him on an issue somewhere, to try to work on that to build some goodwill. But it's really difficult to think of what that would be. He wants to work on, after our Black Lives Matter protests this last year, he wants to work on race relations and inequality, the economy. I think a stimulus is very likely that can get through. Of course, the problem is always reaching a compromise on what the details are. I think that there can be an agreement on a stimulus, but there will be wrangling over the details, just as we've seen before. So there will be some movement, but the Senate is still going to be a real sticking point, and there's going to have to be a lot of compromise and negotiation to get things done, because one vote in the Senate isn't a lot, and it's going to be tough for him.
Well, you mentioned climate change, and you've got one Democrat senator in particular, and that would be Joe Manchin, who comes from West Virginia. That's a coal state.
Exactly, and so
he could be a problem for that.
Right. If just one Democrat defects, that's it, right? And that's the difficulty with the split Senate is just one Democrat down, and your agenda is in trouble. And there are lots of reasons on lots of issues why a Democratic senator might not want to vote for the president's agenda on a particular bill. So for example, West Virginia and coal state, that could be an issue. So it's going to be tough. That's going to be the real sticking point. And as much as possible, as we were saying before, you do want to try to get policy through Congress rather than by executive orders, because then it sticks. Then it's much harder to overturn, but it's going to be hard to get it done that way.
We are watching these images of the motorcade moving on Pennsylvania Avenue, and the president and vice president eventually, and their spouses will eventually get out and walk. Meantime, Matt, I'd love to talk to you about Mitch McConnell moving forward, with the impeachment. Just Wednesday, he came out, and I'm quoting him, basically said that President Trump provoked the Capitol mob. Was that a betrayal, or is that a foreshadowing of what is to come, or do you think it was just something he felt he needed to say and then he's going to stick to his guns in the future?
For a number, or for most senators and members of Congress, the assault on the Capitol that happened on the 6th of January was a deeply personal and offensive experience. And I think that what you saw from now Minority Leader McConnell was an expression of outright disgust and frustration. Now, that being said, he didn't outright endorse an impeachment trial. Chuck Schumer, who controls the Senate's agenda, has said that that is one of the 3 priorities that he wants to pursue. But again, there's going to be the debate before the debate, and that is whether or not you can even impeach a former president of the United States. I do know that President Biden does not want anything to impede or slow Congress's work on his agenda. And Glenn, real quickly, going back to your question, I think the place where agreement can be reached is on an infrastructure bill. Congress wants to spend money and building things in states, particularly for senators and House members that are up for re-election, is always a good thing. It tends to make everyone feel good. But I think that the real opportunity for the Biden administration is the way in which things get done in Congress. And, you know, it's telling that when Barack Obama was president, he didn't work to negotiate with Congress to get things done. He sent Joe Biden. And Joe Biden will play that role. And I think that how things get done on key pieces of legislation will determine whether or not things get done. And again, impeachment is the overhang. And I don't know if there's an appetite to impeach Donald Trump. And I certainly don't know if 17 Republicans are going to go along with what we assume is a united Democratic caucus. But I don't even know if that's an assurance at this point.
Yeah, 2 problems there. It takes 2/3 majority, not just a 51 votes, to impeach a president. Also, the fact that, in the Constitution it says removing a president from office. Well, he's already out of office, so it may end up being, once they debate and realize, it may end up being a moot point at this juncture. We'll just have to wait and see.
Well, thank you so much, Matt Klink and Sarah Hill. We're going to switch over to Washington, D.C., but stick around with us. We will be here live all day and into the evening.
So help me God. Congratulations, Mr. President.
Well, there you have it. A lot of applause as Joe Biden went from president-elect to the 46th president of the United States.
In his speech this morning, President Joe Biden making a speech about renewal and resolve during a time when he says America is being tested, but can and must rise to the challenge. As
we continue our coverage, let's welcome our guest again via Zoom, Matt Klink, a political consultant with Klink Campaigns Incorporated, as well as Dr. Sarah Hill. She's an associate professor of political science at Cal State University, Fullerton. Matt, Sarah, from what we've watched today, what does it mean to see a peaceful transfer of power in the Capitol just a few days after the problems there that we saw a couple of weeks ago? We'll start with Matt.
I think it's just a reaffirmation of the strength of American democracy that 2 weeks after the horrifying events of January 6th, that the nation can pull together and that our democracy is strong enough and vibrant enough to really have what, at least to outward appearances, has been a flawless inauguration of the 46th president of the United States and the first African-American woman vice president. It's really a great day to be an American today.
Sarah, we also just saw 3 senators being sworn in by Vice President Kamala Harris. A big day for them as well.
That was amazing to get to watch, especially 2 men of color. The first Latino senator from California. So it's a huge day for California that we have a vice president representing us as well as this new Latino senator. So it's showing that we're moving forward, right? Government is moving forward. It's happening. The Senate is ready to go. So it really has been powerful today to see both sides come together, very clearly. We had Vice President Mike Pence there. I thought it was really interesting. Vice President Dan Quayle was at the inauguration. So you had, of course, also President George W. Bush. So Republicans were there, along with Democrats. Everyone showing, here we are. We're ready to move forward. This is what we do. This is how we transition. The Senate is ready to get down to business with some really exciting new members. It's a lot of good things today, showing us our democracy is moving forward.
Matt, I got about 20 seconds. Your biggest take from President Biden's speech.
It was a speech that was the authentic Joe Biden. It really he spoke the way he speaks, lunch pail Joe, relating to the common person and the need to unify the American people. Let's hope that he's successful. America needs it right now.
Matt, thank you for that. And Sarah Hill, we appreciate it. Stick around. Of course, we will check back in with you. We are going to take a break, but we are here this entire afternoon. Hope you can spend your afternoon with us.
We'll be right back on the other side of the break.
Goodbye. We love you. We will be back in some form.
High emotion for all who attended the inauguration of President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris this morning. The theme of the president's speech this morning was America United. In it, he used the word unity over and over during a time when unity is most needed here in the United States. As
we continue our inauguration coverage, let's welcome back our guest via Zoom. That would be Matt Klink, a political consultant with Klink Campaign Inc.'s Dr. Sarah Hill, an associate professor of political science at Cal State University Fullerton. Also joining us now is Kerman Maddox. He is a member of the Democratic National Committee. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Kermit, we'll start with you since you're just now joining us.
Sure.
Your impressions of what you saw today.
So I thought today was a fabulous day. I thought we saw the essence of President Joe Biden. I thought the speech was patriotic. I thought it was authentic. I thought it was sincere, and it was full of empathy. I think you heard Joe Biden say repeatedly, we can defeat the coronavirus pandemic. We can revive the economy, and we can handle issues of racial justice if the country comes together. And I believe he believes that. I might also say that he's the first president I've ever heard say, we will denounce white supremacy and we will defeat it. And as an African-American, I tell you, when I heard that, I was startled, not only that he said it, but the fact in 2021, he had to say it when you consider what happened 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago at the Capitol. So I thought today was a tremendous step forward. I thought you saw the essence of Joe Biden, and I think the call to bring the country together in a unified manner was the right tone to strike.
Kerman, I felt the same way when he mentioned white supremacy. I thought that was really interesting. It was like he hit the nail on the head in terms of like bringing it to the forefront instead of it being like the pink elephant in the room.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's there. We know it. We saw what happened in the Capitol. We've witnessed what has happened over the past 4 years with the rise of hate groups and white supremacist groups and the danger it's had on the society. That is a very divisive issue. The nation doesn't need it. And the fact that the president of the United States called it out for what it is and says we're going to fight it, I think was the right message for the country. And he said it the right way. So I think tone is going to be very important with this administration, and it's quite a departure from kind of the toxic culture we've had over the past 4 years.
Sarah, your biggest impression from the president's inauguration speech?
Unity, again, of course, that's the word of the day. The other thing that I've seen today is just how much he wants to get down to business, that President Biden knows there's a lot of work to do with the country in crisis on multiple fronts. And so it's starting. He is signing executive orders. We just saw him sign his first few executive orders. It's moving forward. And so I think those are the two main themes I'm seeing and hearing repeatedly: unity, and then let's get to work. That's also the key point from today.
Matt Klink, we also saw 3 senators being sworn in a little while ago by the new Vice President Kamala Harris. Raphael Warnock, the black senator now, a Jewish senator, and also the first Latino representing California in the Senate.
it's an indication of the ever-changing dynamics in America, and it's a reflection that we truly are a multicultural and multi-ethnic society. I mean, it's fantastic. Alex Padilla has been a mainstay in Los Angeles.
Foreign and domestic.
Such a powerful, smart individual. He's going to do a great job. And it's, speaking on personal privilege, it's nice to have someone from Southern California filling the Senate seat, and I think he can be there for a long time. He's got that much going for him.
All right, Kerwin, since you're with the Democratic National Committee, can you talk about the security in the nation's capital today?
Well, I mean, it was unprecedented. But again, given what happened a couple of weeks ago, you needed that. We've read about the threats. You've heard about the threats. Everybody knows a couple of weeks ago, somebody who has not been arrested left bombs at both the headquarters of the Democratic National Committee and the Republican National Committee. So although, it's different from any other inaugural we've witnessed, heck, I've been to a few inaugurals myself, the level of security was necessary because no one really knew what to expect today because of the series of intelligence that people gathered. So although I would have liked to have been there like many people, given what you heard about the potential threats, you needed that level of security. And frankly, I think we're going to have to see something like this for a while until people are settled that things are safer for people to travel and gather in large numbers.
Matt, we only have about 20 seconds left. We saw everyone behave on both sides today. Tomorrow, a different day?
I think the partisan spears will stay sheathed for a while, and that they will try to get along, at least initially. Hopefully, again, the call for unity by Joe Biden is heard by both sides in the House and in the Senate, Republican and Democrat alike. And that they can find things that they agree on. And I think that infrastructure spending is clearly one of them. It's something that we desperately need in this country. It'll put people back to work, and it has a long-term benefit. So I would hope that they focus on the things that are less controversial first.
Well, we hope they'll get along long enough to help the American people.
Yes.
Because with what's been going on for the last 10 months, they could certainly use it. All right, panel, thanks for joining us, and we'll probably, I'm sure, talk to you sometime in the next hour or so. So
that's a now.
Get yourself a cup of coffee. We'll get back to you a little bit later.
Okay. Thank you.